Types of project communications. Project communications can have many forms and types. In general, they can be organized into the following categories: transactional and relational, formal and informal, verbal and non-verbal, vertical and horizontal. Transactional communications is for exchanging information between two parties. The project leader will use communications on a professional tone. Transactional is more business oriented to keep donors, beneficiaries, and partners informed of the progress of the project, to reach agreements, and to understand the process, policies, or procedures used by the project. Relational communications are for building relationships with key stakeholders, such as partners, beneficiaries, and team members. The project leader will use communications in a more casual and friendly tone. It's used to help understand and evaluate the relationships, resolve conflicts, and stay in touch with people that are supporting the project. Formal communication is very structural. It runs through the project and the organization's hierarchy and indicates the position and authority of the person sending the communication. Some examples of formal communication include reports, contracts, presentations, and media releases. This type of communication is usually planned and takes some time and effort to prepare. Formal communications are used to communicate with donors, vendors, partners, and key stakeholders. Formal communications follow the policies, procedures, standards, and norms set up by the organization to communicate internally and externally. Informal communication requires less effort and planning, but in cases such as emails and use of social networks, the project leader needs to spend some thought on the type of information it's sharing, since it can be stored for long periods of time and shared without his or her consent. Informal communications help convey messages and get feedback in a much faster manner. Informal communications are limited in the type of information that is transmitted, but they help explain certain elements of the project, instruct and guide the team to accomplish tasks, and get quick updates on the progress of the project. Written communications include progress reports, project plans, and email messages. This is the information the project leader shares with the team, stakeholders, donors, and partners. Written messages can be edited and revised many times before they are actually sent. Written communications also provide a record for every message sent and can be saved for later use or reference. A written message enables the receiver to fully understand it and send appropriate feedback. Written communications take more time to receive a feedback than verbal communications and requires proper use of the vocabulary, grammar, writing style, precision, and clarity of the language used. Verbal communications is used in presentations, phone calls, and meetings. Verbal communications refers to the form of communication in which the message is transmitted verbally. This type of communication is influenced by the pitch, the volume, the speed, and clarity of speaking. Verbal communications have the advantage to provide quick feedback and response to situations that don't have the luxury of time, as in our written communications. The clarity in expressing ideas and concepts verbally is an important skill. Nonverbal communications are the facial expressions, the body movements, and vocal cues, such as the pitch and the tone of the voice. They provide additional information at a more subtle level. 55. A communication is nonverbal. It's the most important aspect of a conversation. Nonverbal communication helps the receiver in interpreting the message. Often, some nonverbal signs reflect the situation more accurately than the verbal message. But one needs to be careful since nonverbal communication can sometimes contradict verbal communication and can affect the effectiveness of the message. Vertical communication is the upward and downward communication flow that happens between different hierarchical levels of the organization. An example of upward communication is when the project team member provides the project leader with a status update of his assigned task. An example of a downward communication is when the project leader shares the project goals with the project team. This type of communication is formal and mostly written. Horizontal communication refers to communication between people at the same organizational level. An example of horizontal communication is when project team members discuss project topics with other projects and when team members communicate to coordinate their activities in the project. This type of communication is more informal and mostly verbal. Internal communication is the process of exchanging information among the people of different levels or internal participants within the project or organization. Internal communications help inform all internal stakeholders about the project, helps coordinate resources, increases motivation, and reduces the conflict by clarifying roles and responsibilities and accountabilities. This type of communication is private and should adhere to the organization's policies of managing information. External communications need to be more formal and require the application of policies and procedures to communicate with donors, beneficiaries, and partners. External communications in a project environment has the objective of facilitating cooperation and collaboration with the various stakeholders that are outside the formal structure of the organization. The project leader needs to be aware of the different types of communication that occurs in a project environment and use the one that best fits the purpose. For example, knowing that external and vertical communications are more formal and that informal and verbal communications are more appropriate to build relationships with internal and external stakeholders. Choosing the wrong type can lead to confusion and a lack of trust on the leader.